Finding the words to describe the destruction of humanity is a challenging feat, especially for climate scientists who've struggled to make world governments care about global warming. However, the standout portrayal of climate change for the nations causing it is probably something like this, or more recently this. These photographs, with their simple resonance, capture the destruction and proximity of climate disasters, impressing upon their viewers the danger of allowing climate change to go unchecked. Umurangi Generation, from Origami Digital's Naftali Veselikov-Faulkner, gamifies the narrative power of photography while also demonstrating what it's like to watch the people in power let the world burn. Made in the aftermath of the Australian brushfires and lent further prescience by the major nation's disastrous response to the novel coronavirus, the players unpack the fallout of an ecological calamity, each photo cataloging the political domino effect behind the devastation. In pursuit of its narrative goals, Umurangi Generation seeks to offer player freedom. It allows gamers to explore the themes at their own pace, while also encouraging creativity with their photos. Sadly, Umurangi Generation also limits itself with conventional ideas about mission progress and escalating challenge, introducing several constraints that ultimately detract from what it does best. But let's talk about the game's successes before I explain how it left me feeling a little cold. Every level comes with a list of objectives from your employer, the Teranga Express. These objectives include objects, words, and images they want you to photograph. Complete these mandatory objectives, collect the money from each photo, and deliver the parcel to finish the level. However, the player is free to do so much more. Umurangi Generation features in-field photo retouching. It begins with some basics and unlocks more through the bonus objectives. Bonus objectives include delivering the parcel within 10 minutes, finding new film reels, snapping pics of your friends, recreating the images on postcards, and earning a certain amount of money. Earning money is especially interesting because your employer's assessment of quality isn't what you might expect. A photo's worth is based on its adherence to the 3 C's: color, how many hues in the picture; content, how many objects in the picture; and composition, how the content and color are framed. And don't take pictures of the blue bottles. Never take pictures of the blue bottles. The extensive photography mechanic lays a noteworthy foundation for subtle world building. As you seek the objects of interest for your company, a deep discomfort sets in. The graffiti, armed United Nations guards, and increasingly reddening skyline contribute to a foreboding atmosphere. The city may not be as safe as your innocuous assignments seem to suggest, and each new photo shows the world on the brink of devastation, both natural and social. Here's a good example. You're asked to find Sharky. That's your only hint. Sharky. That's a name you give a plushy mascot or a children's cartoon. So you search the impromptu military installation for anything resembling a Sharky and happen upon this drawing. Oh, maybe a soldier saw an exotic fish and put it in a kiddie pool. Not good for the fish, but sorta charming, I guess. It's only when you follow the sign that you realize Sharky isn't an animal, it's a mortar launcher. Yeah, this cute little scavenger hunt gives way to a weapon of war, which according to the writing on the wall has done its fair share of killing. This interaction shifts your perspective on the United Nations quickly. They've hauled this cannon out here in flagrant disregard for the damage it will do to the country. With your camera, you capture a grim truth. Your lives are expendable, and the people claiming to protect you have already conceded to that reality. Umurangi Generation gives voice to an intersectional contempt of young people and of indigenous people. It allows players to capture the frustration of inheriting a desecrated world from a previous generation of colonizers. Self-interested settlers destroy what they can't comprehend and replace cultures with vacuous, sanitized consumer media. Entertainment that provokes critical thinking is antithetical to their insistence that deep systemic issues of global capitalism should be ignored. So, the young and marginalized push back through their embrace of counterculture. And honestly, nothing is more punk rock than Umurangi Generation's contempt for many of its own mechanics. Firstly, there is no special reward for delivering parcels in 10 minutes or less. While the post-processing upgrades are obtained through bonus objectives, they're not tied specifically to the time limit. A player can spend an hour collecting film reels, taking pictures of their friends, and creating all the surrealist postcards their jaded hearts desire, and that will still earn them the retouching sliders. Best of all, they won't have raced through the environmental storytelling, potentially missing the warning signs that something horrible was about to happen. But by far, the oddest surprise of Umurangi Generation is that money is barely significant. You don't get to save it, spend it on anything, or alter the outcome of the story by earning it. It's not even an indicator of how well you're doing as a photographer, since high-value shots don't always complete objectives, nor are they guaranteed to interest you artistically. And at least in my experience, chasing high-value photos makes players complicit in the destructive capitalist system. Think about how you earn money in the game. Colorful photos of interesting content framed within experimental compositions, the 3 C's. What hits all that criteria? Glowing neon advertisements, attention-grabbing billboards, and crowds of happy people. It's the aesthetic of merriment. By taking photographs that earn lots of money, you're selling Turanga Express the ability to focus on fun and consumerism, rather than the widespread societal problems it should be focusing on. Rubble, poverty, homelessness, martial law, curfews. It's dull, colorless, not the stuff that sells magazines or tracks well with advertisers. They get labeled with condescending euphemisms like moody, minimalist, or landscape. Their systemic critique of poverty, environmental neglect, and apathetic leadership is undermined by the aesthetic critique of their ugliness. Censorship is redundant to a culture that simply dismisses what it finds unpleasant. That changes when the danger is urgent and salacious. News publications want audiences to be surprised by chaos, without tracing the damage back to their tolerance for oppressive systems. It's why you actively lose money for taking photos of blue bottles. Turanga Express, and the capitalist system it exists in, can't show people that the problems were there from the start, that they could have been dealt with if the government acted justly. This is, after all, an unforeseen tragedy, and not a natural consequence of a political order that teaches its people to accept suffering as fact. A big part of fully appreciating Umurangi Generation means ignoring the constraints laid out by the objectives, exploring the urban tableaus for all their personality and danger. See the resilience of indigenous people juxtaposed with the destructive apathy of the colonizers. The people who get the most out of this game will meditate on those themes in the images they capture, without getting caught up in the expectation of dutiful performance. Unfortunately, dutiful performance is still necessary for advancement and thus becomes one of the game's major stumbling blocks. Umurangi Generation's superlative quality is in its delivery of potent subtext through simple and unassuming mechanics. However, it might not be possible to reliably measure how much a player gets it, so the game still ties its level progression to the objectives, some of which are really annoying. When the objective involves deciphering an inscrutable clue, taking a shot at a specific distance, or using a certain lens, Umurangi Generation draws attention away from what it does best in a misguided attempt to be more challenging. Making the objectives harder usually leads to more aimless wandering, and learning how to complete them is never as satisfying as just knowing the answer so you can get back to the world building and creativity. For example, one objective asked me to look for the word cops in the city. Obviously there's a twist intended to shake me from the safety of my assumptions, and what do you know? I can find graffiti that says either cops come here to kill us or cops are dirty. That's good design. It's a striking signifier of the escalating political tension between the people and the state. Okay, now let me just... Wait, why didn't that complete the objective? Do I have to do something different? Is this just not working right? Okay, alright, let's try again. You see this right here? It means I have to take a picture of the word cops while standing close to it. So yeah, instead of just appreciating and absorbing the social commentary on my own terms, I have to climb a ladder, staircase, or conveniently arranged set of increasingly large boxes to get the right shot, none of which made the actual image more resonant or meaningful. It just meant I had more walking and janky platforming to do. There are a lot of objectives that mostly amount to clumsy trick shots in cramped or precarious spaces. I'm persistently thankful that so many of them can just be captured by accident or brute forced through sheer determination, especially if I have to use the telephoto lens. I despise this lens. I feel like its sole purpose is to make me look foolish as I fall over myself taking pictures of nearby things using the lens with the most zoom possible. Oh, and I meant what I said earlier. The less platforming this game expects of me, the better. But as Umurangi Generation reminds us, art is subjective, and its colors, contents, and composition may deliver the kind of novelty and incisiveness that many gamers were missing. While much of how I'm expected to play this game aggravates me, I can't deny the central thesis of its mechanics. Photography is an observant, succinct, and powerful method for storytelling. Capturing those stories yourself is probably why the game leaves such a strong impression on those who play it. And those who can fully appreciate it do so with some pretty unimpeachable enthusiasm.